What's up, Raider Nation? Welcome to the Silver and Black Lair. On this episode, I'll be talking a little bit about the Raiders' linebacking core, how they did last season, and my thoughts coming up this season. And also, I'll be taking a look at the Raiders' 2024 schedule and give my thoughts and predictions on that. All that and much, much more. Stay tuned. I will be back in 45 seconds. What's up, Raider Nation? Welcome to the Silver and Black Lair. I'm your host, the Bat Fry, Kenny Fry, and a little bit different time. Usually I'm 10 a.m., 10 p.m. It doesn't matter because guess what? It's still Friday. Yes. The weekend is here, and we're ready to talk some Las Vegas Raider football. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at their linebacking core just a little bit. Let's talk some stats last year, how they performed last year. In my opinion, this is all opinion based. This is, some facts. Obviously with stats are facts, but besides that, it's all some of the eye tests for me and how I think they're going to perform this year. Some thoughts on that, and then I'm going to go ahead and take a look at that 2024 schedule and give my prediction for that. So we'll kick it off here, talking some Raider linebackers. So Raider linebackers last season, defense, obviously, top 10 defense, played extremely well. Nobody saw it coming. To be honest with you, obviously Max Crosby, that's the big name on the defense. And they went ahead and drafted Tyree Wilson really early, and a couple other defensive players last season that did not really perform well last season. Rookies, it just you got to give them time. But anyway. Nobody saw this Raider defense coming. Nobody. If you said you did, you're lying. Absolutely lying, because the Raiders haven't had a good defense in a dog's age. Whatever the hell that means. But you get the gist of what I'm trying to throw out there. It's been a while since the Raiders had a good defense, and this last season was a very, very good defense. And they really seemed to come into their own when Antonio Pierce became their interim head coach after Josh McDummy was fired on Halloween, which should be now a holiday where you get the day off, you get to celebrate, not only get yourself some candy, but also celebrate the firing of Josh McDaniels and all that monstrosity that he brought with him. So the linebacking core, huge part of that last season. Not only the secondary really playing above and beyond, and defensive line, shutting people down, with relentless pressure and stuff like that. But the linebacking core really, really played above expectations, in my opinion. You guys like Robert Spillane, so somebody that we picked up from the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was with the Steelers for a few years, never really got a good, solid look with the Steelers. And the biggest knock with Robert Spillane has always been his pass coverage. So he lost a lot of reps, a lot of snaps, a lot of starts with the Steelers for that reason. For the most part, that was the biggest reason why. I'm sure there was other reasons why. Maybe just wasn't in their eyes talented enough to play above somebody else. And again, opinion. So the Raiders picked him up last season as a free agent. He comes in, competes, gets the starting gig, and absolutely was lights out last season. Nobody would have expected the kind of production out of Robert Spillane that he gave last season. Nobody. He was absolutely stellar. Robert Spillane was awesome. And I think the biggest thing was the way he was able to feed off Max Crosby and vice versa. Those two guys fed off of each other very, very well. And just the intensity and the absolute, 100% every snap. The go 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 motor doesn't seem to ever, the tank's never on E. It's always on full. It's just completely go football crazy kind of guys. And Robert Spillane was that guy. He was Max Crosby on the second level. So it was a treat to watch Robert Spillane last season. And Divine Diablo took another step last season. You'll be getting that starting role at middle linebacker and really stepping up and taking control of the defense. He was before the Raiders picked up Spillane, before Spillane took hold of a starting job. It was thought to believe that Divine Diablo was going to be your green dot, your quarterback of the defense, calling out the plays and stuff like that. But that ended up going to Robert Spillane, and rightfully so. Robert Spillane showed the leadership and the much needed mental capabilities to be that leader, because it's not an easy job. I like quarterback on the offensive side is not an easy job. There's a lot to read, a lot to see, a lot to know, a lot to bark out. It's the same thing with linebacker on the defensive side. So I'm sure Divine Diablo is a little bit disappointed by that, but he absolutely took another step forward to becoming a solid linebacker for this Raider defense, and a solid linebacker in the NFL. To be honest with you, Divine Diablo had a terrific season last year. So looking at some stats here real quick. Before I get to that, I have a couple comments to shout out here. Our boy Paul Spencer. What's up, Paul Spencer? And I'll tell you what, Paul doesn't get a whole lot of credit. I always give him shout outs, for this, but he doesn't get a whole lot of credit. But just look at this, the overlay, this backdrop I got here. Fan freaking tastic. Got the whole defense on here, the starting defense, second string defense, stuff like that. Awesome job, Paul, and appreciate it very, very much. And wait till you see the schedule. You got the schedule laid out awesome. So yeah, so great job, Paul. Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you putting all this together, and it looks great. He also says the defense bought into Pierce, and it showed. Yeah, they bought into the defense. Well, so here's the thing with McDaniels there. He was such a micromanager, such a control freak, that he wouldn't let the defensive coaches coach. Basically, it was all had to all go through him, and you can see when Antonio Pierce took over, he kind of opened it up. He let the Raiders, all their coaches, whether it was defense, special teams, offense, whatever, he let those guys coach. He let them do their job. But with him being a defensive minded guy, linebacker, you can really show that he was able to really get with Patrick Graham and really hash out whatever issues that there were. The Raiders played good defense under McDaniels, but it went from good to great under Antonio Pierce. But he was able to collaborate with Patrick Graham and say, hey, what do you want to do on defense? What is it that you weren't allowed to do under McDaniels? And let's go from there. And it opened it up. Absolutely opened it up. Started doing different type of rotations in there. Through the defensive line. Secondary, we've seen the changes in secondary. I talked secondary last week. We went from Marcus Peters, kicking that bum to the curb with McDaniels, calling in Jack Jones, and that's an Antonio Pierce type move, and just going from there. You can tell those guys worked really, really well together, and I think that's one of the big reasons why you had Patrick Graham back. Besides that, the Raiders not allowing him to I guess I think it was this past offseason. If Patrick Graham would have had requests for head coaching interviews, I think the Raiders were going to allow it. But any kind of lateral move, if another team wanted to talk to him about their defensive coordinator position, the Raiders were not going to allow it. So but you can tell Patrick Graham and Antonio Pierce really collaborated well together, and Antonio Pierce let Patrick Graham coach. And it showed. It absolutely showed. That defense became much, much more nastier after McDaniels was gone. Paul says McDaniels brought in players to fit him as a coach rather than Pierce bringing in players to fit the team. Correct. Absolutely, 100%. How does this guy fit? And that's one of the things that AP is talking about recently is the Raider way. Are these players Raiders? And that's not really looking so much as a scheme, but attitude. Attitude, ethic, work ethic, and stuff like that. And we're going to see a totally different Raider team than I think we've seen in a very, very long time. Hopefully, it translates though into wins and losses, into wins, not losses. He also says one of my favorites are Jeremy Tillery, I believe, from Notre Dame. Curious to see how he progresses in year 3 with the Raiders. We'll have to keep an eye on him, and also, of course, Michael Mayer, Golden Domer, right? So we'll see how he progresses with Brock Bowers there. Is this going to open it up more for Michael Mayer? We'll see. All right, and next week on the Raiders, I'll be talking, just like Paul said, about Jerry Tillery. I'll be talking about defensive line next week as I progress through each position grouping. All right, so looking at some stats here, Divine Diablo. He was a 3rd-round draft pick in 2021 out of Virginia Tech. He's 6'3", 223 pounds, a big, tall linebacker. He started 15 games last season, which is a career high for him. 106 tackles. All of these are all career highs for Divine Diablo. 106 tackles, 65 of those were solo, and 4 tackles for loss and 1 sack. A terrific season by Divine Diablo. Really sideline to sideline player. Great job. Great middle linebacker. I think he's only going to get better this season. Very, very fast. I think he's a bit lean. You can see his frame 6'3", 223. He's a bit lean. He's a bit, I don't want to say on the thin side, but for a linebacker, he's not your, like you look at Robert Spillane, who's sitting at 6'1", 229. He's a bit stockier, a lot thicker. You look at Divine Diablo, you almost think free safety, almost. So he does fly sideline to sideline, and I felt like last season he did get much better at stepping up into holes, clogging holes, filling holes, and making some nice run stops. And I think that's just going to get better this season. Better reads, quicker reactions as well. Robert Spillane last season started all 17 games. The last couple games he did start injured. I want to say it was it a broken hand, I think. Something like that. I think that was him. First 5 years he spent in Pittsburgh. I think he was undrafted into Pittsburgh. 148 tackles, 82 of which were solo, 7 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits, 3.5 sacks, 3 interceptions, which was huge. The one thing about those 3 interceptions, which were huge for him, that was the big thing on Robert Spillane was, there's no, he's not great in pass coverage. Well, he gets those 3 interceptions, and they were fairly early in the season, I believe, if I remember correctly. Maybe one was later in the season, but I'm just hoping that those 3 interceptions weren't like a mirage. Hopefully, he can carry that over to the season, continue to get better at defending, the pass, and keeping his ass on the field. Because if you can't defend the pass, well, you got to bring somebody else in, a different linebacker that's better at that. And we want Spillane out there. Like I said, he's 6'1", 229 pounds, and it's coming into. I mixed up some notes there. I'm like, what the hell? That doesn't even make any sense. 6'1", 229 pounds. Good, thick linebacker, and like I said, his intensity is only matched by one other person on that defense right now, and that's Max Crosby. And it's nice. It's great to see those 2 guys feeding off each other. Luke Masterson, a backup linebacker. He started 1 game last year, played in all 16. You see a lot of Luke Masterson on special teams, but he got a lot of playing time last season on the first team defense. Kind of filling in, rotating in with Divine Diablo. Spillane didn't come off the field very much, much like Max Crosby. I think I could be wrong about this, but I feel like Robert Spillane was second in defensive snaps behind Crosby, but I could be wrong about that. So 16 games, 27 tackles, 17 solo tackles, played in 7 games. Played in 7 games last year, 1 started. Yeah, I got it all mixed up now. I'm like combining here. I'm reading Amari Burney's stats, and I got it mixed up. Yeah, Amari Burney, rookie last season. Spent most of the season being a healthy scratch, which a bunch of the rookies were. You didn't see many rookies actually play much last season. Amari Burney was a 6th-round draft pick last season. Played in 7 games, 15 tackles, 10 solo. And like I said, you didn't see him a whole lot. You did see him occasionally. You see the name Burney out there, but with the starting defense, but not a whole lot. Tommy Eichenberg. Here's we got a comment on here from Paul. He said, I was so high on Tommy Eichenberg from Ohio State, nasty linebacker. He will start soon. I had him a 3-4 linebacker in the nation, the third to fourth linebacker ranked in the nation. Yeah, and I think one of the things that hurt Eichenberg was he got injured last season, missed a few games, and so if you get hurt, people tend to forget about you a little bit. But the season before 2022, a terrific season. 120 tackles in 2022, 2.5 sacks, interception. And like I said, that was in, I think, 13 games. In 10 games in 2023, 82 tackles and a sack. But like I said, he missed a few games because of injury. And I think it was 2022 where he set all those records. I think it was in the Rose Bowl, tackles. I want to say it was against Oregon, but I could be wrong about that. And Ohio State's no joke either. Ohio State's no joke. It's a big national football school, and of course in Big Ten, which is a big conference, big boy conference as well. So it's it's high level competition week in and week out for the most part, unless they're playing, the Ohio Penitentiary or the Ohio, School of the Blind or whatever, which a lot of those teams do for a couple of those weeks during the season. I want to see teams week in and week out play top flight competition, but they like I said, they always have like 3 or 4 of those games against low level D1 schools or even D2, which I guess they don't call them D2 or D1 anymore. It's FBS, FCS, whatever the hell it is. So yeah, he was a 5th round. Tommy Eichenberg was a 5th round pick. He's 6'2", 235 pounds, and I can't wait to get him out there on the field. I cannot wait to see him and Robert Spillane and Max Crosby all on the field at the same time, because Tommy Eichenberg looks like Robert Spillane. He reminds me so much of Robert Spillane with his intensity. He's just a football guy. You know what I mean? It's just a football guy. He wants to get out there. He wants to hit people. He wants to mix it up, and just flies around, making plays, making tackles, in people's faces. You love it. Absolutely love it. I heard the name Tommy Eichenberg before. I remember watching that game where he set the record for tackles in the bowl game. I remember watching that game. But besides that, I'm not really familiar with Tommy Eichenberg. So when the Raiders drafted him, I started, reading some stuff that was written about him after the experts, like the Raiders got this guy and this is what they hit the write up on him, and watching some video, I'm like, 5th round pick, the Raiders got themselves a really good linebacker. He's not going to start right away. He's going to have to cut his teeth, on some special teams and filling in and stuff like that, rotating in probably on the defense. But I have no doubt before the season's out, he'll be a starter. And a lot of that depends on what kind of defense the Raiders are running. Are they going to go 4-3? Once in a while on a heavy run team, or the Raiders last year ran a lot of the 4-2-5, where it's a nickel package, 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 defensive backs. So it depends on kind of what they're running, as to what kind of playing time he's going to get and how Divine Diablo's continuing to progress. If the Divine Diablo takes a step back, who knows? Maybe Tommy Eichenberg is able to jump in there for more playing time, taking snaps away from Divine Diablo, but we'll have to wait and see. So I'm pretty sure Tommy Eichenberg is a middle linebacker, and that's what they have. Divine Diablo listed as his middle linebacker, and they have Spillane listed as their as your will linebacker. 17 tackles, 11 solo versus Utah. That's a Utah. I said Oregon, but I'm like, that doesn't feel right, doesn't sound right. I don't think it was Oregon, but yeah. So it was Utah in the Rose Bowl. I was pretty sure it was the Rose Bowl for being Ohio State, but I couldn't remember the Pac-10, Pac-12 team, whatever the hell you want to call them. I couldn't really remember who that was. All right, so my thoughts on the linebackers here, even though I was, pretty much giving it the outlook. So I wrote down a bunch of notes here. So I'm just going to read off of that. Spillane will take the next step and become one of the leaders, not only on the defense, but also on the team. Romanowski-like, with the intensity and the Max Crosby motor. Divine Diablo and Luke Masterson will share time at linebacker. So I do expect Luke Masterson to get more snaps this year. Divine Diablo is your other starter. That's no hands up, no ands ifs or buts about it. But I do expect Luke Masterson to kind of fill in there a little bit, give Divine Diablo some breaks, and also give Luke Masterson, as long as he's progressing, through the preseason, through camps and stuff like that, to give him some more looks. I think Divine Diablo establishes himself as a close second to Robert Spillane as a leader. And Amari Burney may be the odd man out and relegated to special teams, while rookie Tommy Eichenberg claws his way into significant playing time with the number ones. And then I just don't see. I think Amari Burney was more of a project type linebacker when the Raiders drafted him in the 6th round last season. For some reason, I can't remember the exact wording or the position that I don't think he was an original linebacker. I feel like either he was a safety that bumped up the linebacker or like a defensive end that bumped back the linebacker. But he hasn't been a linebacker for very long. So he's kind of like a project type linebacker with a high upside. And so I think it's going to be a while yet before we see Amari Burney really get any kind of significant playing time at linebacker. So I do expect Tommy Eichenberg to kind of pass him out this season, probably fairly quickly. Some of my predictions for the linebacking core: Robert Spillane will be a tackling machine and continue to improve in pass coverage. Divine Diablo stays healthy and becomes a playmaker out of the middle. Luke Masterson will be a solid role player. Eichenberg will claw his way up into the depth chart and get playing time, and the defense will love him. Darian Butler, who was kind of like a practice squad, special teams type player, will fill in and pretty much play junk time type stuff and mostly special teams. And Amari Burney as well, kind of a fill in when needed, junk time kind of player. If the Raiders are up big or down big or whatever, you see those second teamers or third teamers, guys that don't normally get a whole lot of playing time with the ones, get out there, just kill some time. But he'll be on special teams, but he'll show. I think Burney will improve, but just is not going to be enough to get any sort of significant playing time. So that's my thoughts on the linebacking core. I got Paul here. I think you move Eichenberg outside next to Spillane and Diablo. He can cover hybrid ball catchers and run fill. Well, and that's what I mean when I said about the Raiders scheme. The Raiders defense last season, they ran a lot of 4-2-5. Like I said before, a lot of 4-down linemen. Even though you did see a Max Crosby occasionally standing up, but I think that was just more so to kind of get him better looks and confuse the defense as to where Crosby's going to come from. But only with 2 linebackers out there, you don't get your traditional type 4-3 set. But if the Raiders do go 4-3, which I do expect them to go a little bit more 4-3 this year, especially if our linebackers do get better in the pass coverage area. But if you do, that's where I would expect Eichenberg as well. On the outside, he is fast, does have decent speed. When the Raiders drafted him, I did talk about his speed. I want to say he ran a 4.5 40, but I could be wrong. I think it was a 4.58. So he does have decent speed, and he can cover. So And that's going to be huge. You're covering running backs, covering tight ends. Your short intermediate routes and stuff like that. Being able to read that stuff fast, making the cover, keeping quarterbacks in the pocket. Kind of thing. Don't let the quarterbacks break out, get around the edge. We see a couple quarterbacks here. Just looking at our schedule here. Herbert. Who else we got here? Lamar Jackson. The Panthers quarterback with Young. I can't think of his first name right now. Deshaun Watson. All guys that can run. All guys that can run. Looking at Pittsburgh, even Russell Wilson. He's not much of a runner anymore, but he's still a scrambler. Patty Mahomes, same thing with him. He's not your prototypical running quarterback, but he is a very, very good scrambler. So there are guys there that will take off, that you have to be able to control those edges. So Paul says, issue is the 4-2-5, depends on matchups. Chargers will run the ball, need a 4-3. Chiefs, the 4-2-5 fits. Yeah, that happened a lot last season. It was all came to scheme, all came to fit. The Raiders did run some 4-3 last year, but it was mostly 4-2-5. And I feel like the better they did against the run, more teams were trying to pass on them. And I think they're just trying to take advantage of that, a little bit of inexperience, between Jack Jones, Amik Robertson, who's no longer in the organization. He's with the Lions. Trying to take advantage of the younger defensive backs, so they started throwing the ball more. And with the Raiders' defense, stifling as they were, the offense wasn't all that great. But other teams playing from behind, they start passing the ball a little bit more. And like I said, the Raiders' offense wasn't all that great, so not many teams were that far behind when they were behind anyway. There was only one team that was pretty far behind, and that was the Chargers. So, all right. So that's what I got for the linebackers. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the schedule here. I really like our linebacking core. I expect them to get better, and I expect a lot of great things out of linebackers this year. They're just going to get better. Again, next week I'll be talking defensive line, but I think it obviously it starts with the defensive line because that's your first line of defense there. But if I were to rank the three levels, as to what's the best and what's the worst, it'd have to go defensive line's the best, the linebackers, second, and the defensive backfield third. And I feel like that linebacking core with Tommy Eichenberg, as soon as he's up to snuff and proves that he can play at this level, I think that linebacking core is going to creep up on that defensive line as the top playmakers on the defense. All right. So moving on to the schedule. There we go. There, look at that. Great job, Paul. Beautiful. All right. So we got the schedule here. I'm going to go ahead and read through the teams. I'm going to go ahead and, I'm just going to do my predictions with it. So week 1, play the Chargers at Chargers, which is basically a home game for the Raiders anyway, in Los Angeles. Whenever the Raiders play the Chargers in LA, it's a sea of black. And if you're listening to that on the radio, you would not know who the home team was, or you wouldn't think that the Chargers were the home team. You would think it was another home game for the Raiders. So week 1 at the Chargers. Chargers last season 5-12, rough season for them. Against the Raiders last year, they were 63-21. They lost 63-21. The Raiders won. All right, let me start that over. Raiders won 63-21, and they lost to the Chargers last year 24-17. This season coming up, week 1, I had the Raiders winning that matchup 20-17. Kicking off the season with a dub. I like that. Week 2, we move on to Baltimore at Baltimore. It's going to be a tough one for the Raiders, not only because Baltimore is good, but also it's for the Raiders being Las Vegas, that'd be a 10 a.m. start time for them because it's a 1 p.m. East Coast type thing. You always hear about it, affecting West Coast teams. And for the most part, I think it does, but that can't be an excuse. It can't be an excuse. So That's a piss poor excuse if that's what you're going with. So they didn't play last season. Baltimore last year was 13-4. So I think the Raiders will lose this game 24-10. Moving on to week 3 versus the Carolina Panthers, 2-15. Like I said, the Panthers not a good season last year at all, and we're going to see what their quarterback. I think is it Bryce Young? I think that's what it is. We'll see what he's made of. Last season, a tough season last year. I feel like he got hurt, but I could be thinking of what the hell's his name? Indianapolis. I'm terrible. I'm terrible with names. I'm terrible. I forget everything, and that's where I start struggling. Anyway, so yeah, tough season last year for the Panthers. They're going to get a little bit better. I don't expect them to be like steps ahead of where they were last season, but I do expect them to be a little bit better than 2-15 this year. The Raiders win that game 31-10. Week 4, Cleveland against the Browns. We'll see what Deshaun Watson does in Cleveland. Does he get any better, or did Cleveland just lose a whole lot of money on a quarterback that sucks ass? We're gonna find out this year, I think. Last year, Cleveland 11-6, and as mostly off the backs of the defense. Deshaun Watson was hurt a lot last year. They ended up finishing with Flacco at quarterback, who played well up until I think they won their first playoff game, but I think it was the second playoff game. He got rocked pretty good. I think, if I remember correctly, which there's a good chance I didn't. I do not. I think the Raiders win this game. It's in Las Vegas, but I think they win 17-10. So that would put the Raiders at that point. Let me write this down here so I don't lose it. 3-1. So that puts them after 4 weeks of the season. That puts the Raiders at 3-1, sitting pretty nice. Week 5 at the Denver Broncos. I hate the Broncos. I don't care if the Broncos had the best team in the league and the Raiders were the worst team in the league. I will always pick the Raiders to beat the Broncos, and I don't care. I don't care how wrong I am or whatever. I'm always going to pick the Raiders to beat the Broncos. So last season, the Broncos were 8-9. I think that record's kind of a little bit facetious. They started off absolutely awful. They hit a patch in the middle to late season where they won a bunch of games in a row. They were looking better. And then by the last 3-4 weeks of the season, they kind of started playing like the early season Broncos again, and that was it. Russell Wilson I thought had a really good season for the Broncos last year, but he caught a lot of I don't know, I'm not really sure why. He caught a lot of fire. If I remember correctly, his passing touchdowns were like the mid to high 20s. Interceptions were either low double digits, like 10, 11, 12, or they might have been single digit. I feel like it was like 28 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, which is, they're really good numbers for a quarterback. So I don't know what the hate on Russell Wilson was last season, but, they didn't like him. The front office didn't like him. Fans didn't like him. So they shipped his ass off to Pittsburgh, and they ended up drafting Bo Nix. So we'll see what Bo Nix has in store for the Raiders. And Bo Nix will see what the Raiders have in store for him. So I had the Raiders winning this game, 28-10. That puts the Raiders at 4-1. And we move on to Week 6. That game was in Denver. Week 6 versus Pittsburgh. It's in Las Vegas. Pittsburgh was 10-7 last year. The Raiders lost to them 23-18. Tough game. It's one of those. It was just one of those games where you felt like the Raiders should have won. I think, if I remember correctly, stats-wise, play-wise, the Raiders, just the eye test were the better team. But Kenny Pickett pulled it out of his ass last year. I don't know how. I don't know why. That was just one of those things, how it went last season for the Raiders. I have the Raiders winning this game as well. They're gonna win all their games. So I have them winning this one, 20-16. That puts the Raiders at 5-1. Great start for the Raiders. They go to Los Angeles to play the Rams then. A tough game. 10-7 Rams last year. They were playoffs last season. I had the Raiders losing this game 23-20. That puts the Raiders at 5-2. The Rams are interesting. Aaron Donald's retired and stuff like that. You have what the hell's his name? The quarterback. I can't think of. He's on his last leg as well. It's an older type team. So it's with a couple in it. Cooper Kupp, he's up there. I don't even know if is Cooper Kupp still on the team. I think he is. He's up there, in age as well. So Matthew Stafford. That's the name I'm trying to think of. He's really up there in age. So these guys are kind of on their last hurrah. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of Rams team that we're going to get. I think they played a little bit above what most people would have thought last season. They started off really poorly, but then really kicked it into gear probably halfway through the season, and they look good for a good portion of the season. Like I said, making the playoffs. So we'll see what kind of Rams team we get this year. But I have the Raiders losing that one in Los Angeles. Again, it's going to be a heavy Raider type game. You're going to see a lot of silver and black in the crowd because Raiders are still loved in Los Angeles. But they dropped that one, so now they're 5-2. Move on to Week 8 against Kansas City. Last year against Kansas City, the Raiders lost 31-17, and they also won 2014. That 2014 game. A couple touchdowns on defense. We had that pick six by Jack Jones, and we also had who was it? Was it Adam Butler? It was a defensive lineman return for a touchdown. I can't remember if it was. I think Adam Butler had the sack that created the fumble. I just can't think of who ran the ball in. I don't remember. But anyway, a couple defensive touchdowns. And I think the Raiders had 0 first downs after the first quarter. But Aiden O'Connell didn't turn the ball over either. He didn't give the Chiefs any extra possessions. He played that field position game. Pinning them deep a lot in that game and did a hell of a job. It was a late season game too. I'm not sure what week it was, like 13 or 14, somewhere around there. 13, 14, 15. And I think that game was in Kansas City. So it was cold, it was windy. So a lot of that probably helped the Raiders as well. So this is on October 27th, right before Halloween. I have the Raiders losing this game. Or no, I have them winning in Las Vegas. 24-21. That puts the Raiders at 6-2. Then they have Week 9 at Cincinnati. Cincinnati last year 9-8. Burrow was getting hurt. A lot of injuries last season. A lot of turmoil in this season. In the off season, with some guys that were free agents, wanting their money and type stuff. I had the Raiders losing this game to Cincinnati. Joe Burrows. We'll see how he looks this year. I believe he'll be back. What did he have? I think was it a UCL last year? So I assume he'll be back. I had the Raiders losing this game 27-17 in Cincinnati in November. There's a chance it could be cold. There's a chance it could be warm. Who the hell knows what you're going to get in November in the Midwest and even the Northeast, for that matter. So at the halfway point, or not the halfway, at the Raiders bye Week 10, the Raiders are sitting at 6-3 on my count here. They go to Miami then, Week 11 on November 17th. Last season, the Raiders lost to Miami. In Miami. It seems like they always play in Miami. They lost them last year, 2013. Tough loss for the Raiders. Number one offense. The Raiders held them down really, really well. Just couldn't put any points on the board. It was just, and that was a recurring theme last season. -1 game. For the most part, just the Raiders could not score points offensively. This one, I had the Raiders losing to Miami 30-20. That puts the Raiders at 6-4. Then Denver. Again, I will always pick the Raiders to beat Denver. So I had the Raiders winning this game. Coming back with a vengeance, 30-13. That puts the Raiders at 7-4. The Black Friday game. Now this part kind of pisses me off. I know the schedule makers here. So now they're doing this thing this year with Black Friday. I think it's this year. Was it last year as well? I don't remember. I think they started it last season. Black Friday games now. I'm cool with that. Yeah, Thanksgiving, Black Friday. I think I don't know if that's the same week where they start Saturday games yet or not, but right around there they start the Saturday games. I think maybe the week after, 2 weeks after. I could be wrong. Black Friday. Of course, you want the Raiders to play on Black Friday. They are the silver and black. It just makes sense. Why in the hell would you not have them in Las Vegas? Every Black Friday game should be in Las Vegas. Period. Just like Thanksgiving, you have the Cowboys in Dallas, you have the Lions in Detroit. Every Black Friday, you should have the Raiders in Las Vegas. Period. That's it. I mean, done. I don't understand why they're in Kansas City on Black Friday. Makes zero sense. If you want to have the Raiders and Chiefs on Black Friday, that's fine. Why is it not in Vegas? Why? It doesn't make sense to me. It's a missed opportunity for the NFL. They don't give a shit, though. What the hell do they care? As long as they're making money. It just doesn't make sense to me. I had the Raiders losing this game 31-16. That puts the Raiders at 7-5. Week 14 at Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay last year was 9-8. I had the Raiders winning 26-20. Raiders are at 8-5 there. 12-16, December 16th. Monday Night Football. And, of course, it's a flex game. So, hopefully, the Falcons and Raiders are playing well so we can see the Raiders on a televised game. Atlanta last year was 7-10. I got Kirk Cousins this year. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they progress from last season. They also, with the draft, also drafting Michael Penix for whatever reason. So we'll see how Kirk Cousins does coming off an Achilles injury. That's going to be the big part of that. The big question mark for Kirk Cousins, how does he respond being an older quarterback off an Achilles injury like that? So this one I have the Raiders winning versus Atlanta. So this is in Las Vegas. I have the Raiders winning this game 27-10. That puts them at 9-5. Looking good. So week 16 versus Jacksonville. Jacksonville last year was 9-8. This one's all in Las Vegas again. I have the Raiders winning this game against Jacksonville. We'll see with Trevor Lawrence how they kind of took a step back last season from the season before. A lot of people were expecting huge things out of Jacksonville, and they just weren't ready for it. So we'll see how they respond this year. I think this might be the last. I could be wrong, but I think this is Trevor Lawrence's last year on his contract. So I think he's a free agent next year. Again, I could be wrong, so we'll see what happens there. All right. Good old sunshine, right? The Raiders win this game 17-7, puts them at 10-5, double-digit wins. Then we head to New Orleans in a Derek Carr Bowl, which should be interesting. I had the Raiders losing this one to Derek Carr. I have them losing 20-17. That puts them at 10-6. And finally, last week of the season versus the Chargers. I always like a split in this. I think by the end of the season, I think the Chargers are going to be a much better team than they are in the first week of the season. I think Jim Harbaugh will turn that team around and have them playing much, much better by the end of the season. So I had the Raiders losing this game to the Chargers. Let's go 24-16. And so the Raiders finished the season at 10-7 and in the playoff hunt. I think the Raiders will have a really good shot like next year at the playoffs. I'm not sure if they'll make the playoffs or not, but I do feel like it's a step forward. It's all going to hedge on two things. Our season this year is going to hedge on two things. First thing is, can the defense replicate what they did last season and take that step forward and become a top 5 defense instead of top 10 defense? Can they continue that progress? Tyree Wilson, can he progress into being that first round draft pick that we thought he was? Malcolm Kuntz, Does he continue to produce at a level that wasn't expected? Jack Jones as well. Does he continue to produce? Is he still going to remain a ball hawk without costing the team big plays? Who knows? Ja'Cory Bennett. Is he able to step up? Nate Hobbs, can he continue playing well in the secondary? Robert Spillane, all those guys. Can the defense replicate the success and take that step forward and make it even better? I think the pieces are there. I'm a little bit sketchy on the defense on the D-backs, but all the other pieces are there in my opinion. And the other thing is the quarterback position. Are these quarterbacks good enough to win the Raiders games? And that remains to be seen. We've seen Gardner Minshew, how well he played for Indianapolis last year, had them in the playoff hunt. They were in the playoffs basically with 2 minutes to go in that game against I don't remember who it was. It doesn't matter who it was against, but they blew it. If I remember correctly, they had a lead, they blew it. So, can if Minshew's a starter, can he continue that success from last season? I believe Aiden O'Connell. AP said it himself. Aiden O'Connell is the leader in the clubhouse. But it's a competition. He said it. He's the guy. He's a starter right now, but it's a competition. He can be beat out. I think Aiden O'Connell, with a full off season and a better understanding, Luke Getsy's offense, which isn't going to rely heavily on the quarterback. A run style offense with your safety net, tight ends, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, and of course Devontae Adams getting the ball. I feel like I expect to see Aiden O'Connell as your starter week 1, and I do expect Aiden O'Connell to take a big step forward as to being a good quarterback. He's not going to be a great quarterback, but I feel like he's going to be a good quarterback, and hopefully he added some pocket presence and some scrambling to his repertoire. I got a comment here. Virginia Hernandez. What's up, Virginia Hernandez? She says the Chiefs will three-peat. I can't argue it. I don't like the Chiefs, obviously, because I'm a Raider fan. But I can't argue against it. It's just one of those things. Until somebody steps up and beats them, you have to go with the champs. What has changed for them, really? If anything, they've gotten better than last season, right? Through the draft and stuff like that. They had a really good draft. Off-season wise, I'm not sure off the top of my head what the Chiefs did in the off-season. But just, having Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey back are huge. I know Rashee Rice, has run into a little bit of trouble here. And you have Harrison Butker, putting his foot in his mouth. Maybe not putting his foot in. Depends on how you look at it, I guess. He doesn't think he put his foot in his mouth, but everybody else thinks he put his foot in his mouth. Harrison Butker, the field goal kicker. I know there was some off-season issues, but the Chiefs might have gotten better. So until somebody's able to step up and shut them down, they very well may repeat. If not as Super Bowl champions, they're still the AFC champions as well. Until somebody's able to step up and put their asses down, what are you going to do? So, Fantasy Football Girl says Chiefs will not repeat. We got another one for the Chiefs not repeating. I like that. Thank you for checking the show out. Thank you for commenting. Virginia and Fantasy Football Girl. Appreciate it very much. They picked up Hollywood Brown. Was he with the Ravens last season? I know he's with the Cardinals. But I don't know if it was. No, he went from the Ravens to the Cardinals, I believe. Now the Cardinals to, I think, Kansas City. All right. He's not a bad wide receiver. They just need somebody to catch the damn ball besides Kelsey. I know that was one of the huge things last year. You got that right. He did set us women back about 100 years. Said shit in his own mama is a scientist. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where he was coming from with all that. I don't know. I'll tell you what. I'd be a happy homemaker too if my husband was out making millions of dollars, kicking a football between a couple posts, So, if his wife is happy at home, you know, um, being a homemaker and stuff like that, yeah, that's great. Fantastic. It makes it a little bit easier though, when you're in the position that they're in. The husband's a professional athlete, all that good stuff, and not really anything to worry about money wise. She didn't have to worry about a career, even though I do believe he said that she did have a degree in, I'm not sure what it was, but she put her career on the back burner to be a homemaker. Great, good for her. That's awesome. But to go out and say what he said, and to have people applaud it then in the crowd, it blew my mind. It's like, wow. I was expecting like to hear like a silence or audible gasps. I love audible gasps, but whatever. It is what it is. It was shocking to say the least. Um, they will definitely not be AFC champs. Who will be AFC champs? Are you going to say the Colts? Hollywood Brown from the Cardinals. Yeah, after I said it, I remember because he started in Baltimore, then he was in Arizona. Now I didn't realize Kansas City picked him up. So unfortunately, and this hurts to say, but I think Houston might give them a run for their money. Houston's, if they're able to build on what they did last season, absolutely, they'll be able to push the Chiefs. They'll be able to push anybody. And if of course, the Ravens, if they're able to continue building on last season, 13-4 last year, everybody was looking at them to be the ones to unseat Kansas City. But Lamar Jackson in playoffs, it's not happening yet. Bucker got a raise. He was very good at Phil. He's good at his job. The dude is good at his job. He was at a Catholic school, yes, and there's also his. Obviously it's one of those Catholic schools that are like super like straight line Catholic school. It's not like a progressive type Catholic school. It's one of those straight line, hard nosed old school Catholic schools. But I guess like a business that he owns also is a huge donor or sponsor for that school as well. So that's the thing. I'm not one to go and start like hedging on people's beliefs. Like oh you're wrong. If that's what he believes in, whatever, that's fine. Like I said, he has it a bit easier than a lot of those people will ever have it, and through hard work. Don't get me wrong. It's not like he was handed something. Through hard work. So it's easier for his family, his wife, to be a happy homemaker than it would be for somebody else. And I'm sure, if you were to ask her candidly, face to face, I'm sure she, would want to, go out and, do what her degree. I can't remember what her degree was. Go out and pursue that. Pursue whatever job it was that her degree or her field her degree was in, and I'm distracted now because this is why I'm distracted. Right there, my wife, Jennifer, who's asking if I'm done yet. I am almost done. Another 2 minutes here, and I will be out. So yeah, the boss is cracking the whip. So yeah. I'm sure she would have liked to pursue the whatever field it was that her degree was in, and she still might. Being a stay-at-home mom or a homemaker is not a life, like a lifelong thing. It's one of those things. You do it. Kids get older. All right. Now it's time for mom or even dad in some cases to go out and pursue that career. So but still, I mean, for him to say what he said. It got a lot of backlash, so that's just one of those distractions that a team doesn't need. I guess he also said something, about a teammate's girlfriend. A lot of people are saying that it was Taylor Swift, Kelsey and Taylor Swift. So whether it was, I don't know. So it's gonna be interesting. I mean, if I'm the field goal kicker. Most of those guys are undersized fellows. I'm not the one that I would not want to be the one to go and piss off the star of the team, who's much larger than me and stuff like that by talking shit on his girlfriend. So his ultra famous girlfriend, who's way more famous than any of those guys. To be 100% honest with you. Fantasy Football Girl says I would be lying if I said my Colts. Yeah, but every year you have to have that little bit of optimism. Like it's a little bit of like sneaks in there. Even for me, like even during the Jamarcus Russell days, there's always that little bit of a glimmer, even though it's very small. Like, maybe the Raiders, at least make the playoffs. Maybe they can make the playoffs this year. But I knew deep down I was fooling myself. So Virginia says Raiders should have grabbed the quarterback. And that was that's a big thing. A lot of people were down on the Raiders because they didn't grab a quarterback. But after all those quarterbacks were gone, there wasn't anybody really to grab until like the later rounds. They felt like they had better quarterbacks already in the room than what was left in the draft. So why waste the draft pick on somebody that you don't believe that's going to push to be a starter? So I get it. I was bummed as well. I said on the show a couple times, Virginia, I don't know if you've ever seen the show before. Again, thank you for checking it out tonight. Thank you for commenting. Please give us a follow. Subscribe to the Out of the Box Sports YouTube channels. All appreciated. Check us out on X as well. But I said before, I didn't see picks 1, 2, or 3 trading out. I didn't see the Bears, Commanders, or Patriots trading out. Like, why would you want to trade out? If you think your franchise quarterback is in this draft, you have that pick for the franchise quarterback. There ain't no way in hell I would trade that pick just for 3 years of number ones that may never pan out. I mean, you have to take that chance. If you think that's going to be your franchise quarterback for the next 10 to 15 years, you got to take that chance. So, but moving up to maybe 8, 7, 8, around there to get maybe a Penix or a Bo Nix or whatever. I thought they would have tried that, and maybe they did. I didn't see any reports saying otherwise that they did or didn't. So maybe they did, but it just didn't happen for him. And I'm fine with that. Maybe there's somebody. If AOC, if Aiden O'Connell doesn't pan out, Gardner Minshew doesn't pan out, maybe there's somebody else in free agency, or maybe there's somebody else that comes out of nowhere next season in college and is being projected as the top type quarterback, and then you can go ahead and trade up for that guy. And so it's not all. It doesn't have to be all this year. The Raiders are being built, I feel like, the right way right now. They do have a window. The window is pretty well open right now, so there's still time to kind of still add to the team to get it where you need it. So it's just it was a bummer, but I wasn't overly surprised. I was surprised that they didn't get a quarterback at all in the draft, but I wasn't surprised that they didn't get any of those top 5 or 6. All right, got a couple more comments, and I'm going to jet out of here. Well, wifey calls, so night, a happy wife, happy life. Absolutely. I'm a 2-team person, so my Bears are winning the Super. There you go. The Bears had a really good draft. The Bears did have a really good draft. So it's going to be interesting to see how Caleb Williams plays there and how the Bears progress. Good night, Fantasy Football Girl. Thank you for checking the show out. Thank you for commenting. And thank you for checking out a bunch of the shows. I see your name pop up a lot. It's very much appreciated. All right, I'm going to go ahead and do my sponsor reads here real quick before I get out of here. Love doing those sponsor reads. Gives me a chance to get my fat face off the camera and use some of this sweet vocal cords that I have here. All right, Jason Fine, attorney Big Al. You can reach Big Al at 1-800-HURT-123. That's 1-800-HURT-123. Jason Fine specializes in motor vehicle accidents, slip and fall, workman's comp, and personal injury claims. He has 3 office locations conveniently located throughout Pennsylvania and New Jersey. In Cherry Hill, New Jersey, the offices are located on 3 Greensward Lane. The phone number there is 856-209-5258. And in the Steel City of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, the offices are located at 500 Grant Street, Suite 2900. The phone number there is 412-365-8151. And in the city of Brotherly Love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the offices are located at 1628 JFK Boulevard, Suite 2120. The phone number there is 267-888-2980. That's Jason Fine, attorney Big Al. Head on over to monkeycoltcoffee.com for all your gourmet coffee needs. They got some kick-ass boozy coffees there. Bourbon chocolate chip infused coffee, toasted coconut rum. They have a Sumatran blend medium roast coffee for you coffee lovers out there that don't want a flavored coffee, just want a straightforward kicking the nuts coffee. That's your Sumatran blend medium roast coffee. Fantastic stuff. They also have an organic blend called Perula Florida and their newest flavor, Golden Honey Agave. They're also selling barrel-aged honey at monkeycoltcoffee.com. Be sure to check out their swag shop. They got t-shirts, coffee mugs, tumbler cups, cold brew pitchers for all you iced coffee and cold brew coffee lovers, K-cup adapters, and don't forget that sweet, sweet Paradise Rum Cake. Love it. Be sure to use that promo code at checkout, OOTB Sports, for 10% off your order. That promo code, once again, is OOTB Sports for 10% off your order at monkeycoltcoffee.com. Yes, I got right here. I got my Monkey Colt coffee mug. Love the coffee mug. I got the cold brew pitcher. Easy to use. Fantastic. And also the tumbler cup. Good stuff there. They don't have fat guy sizes in the t-shirt, so I don't have a t-shirt, but I am losing weight, so I can get a t-shirt. That's not the only reason, but it is the reason. All right. One more thing before I head out of here. Reminder, coming up on May 27th, a brand new show here at Out of the Box Sports Entertainment, Inside the Octagon with UFC Talk. Our hosts will be Paul and Josh. And like I said, debuting May 27th, that'll be 8:30 p.m. And it'll be on every Monday after that at 8:30 p.m. So be sure to check it out on Facebook, YouTube, and X. Like, follow, subscribe. You can check me out tomorrow night, 10 p.m., the Atomic Drop podcast, talking WWE wrestling. Next Wednesday, next Wednesday, I'm not sure yet because I think my daughter has a thing for school. So stay tuned for that with the Batcave, talking New York Mets baseball. Next Thursday morning, I'll be talking 10 a.m. I'll be talking LA Kings hockey on the Silver and Black Lair LA Kings edition. And I'll be back with the Silver and Black Las Vegas Raiders edition next Friday. Probably 10 a.m. I'm not sure if I'm going to go 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. yet. I want to see how the viewership is. Maybe it's better for me to go later than earlier, but we'll see. So be sure to check us out tomorrow night. The Atomic Drop podcast, talking WWE wrestling. And you'll throw your comments out there, questions, all that good stuff, and we'll discuss. All right. Thank you, everybody, for checking the show out. Thank you for the comments. You'll be sure to like, follow, subscribe. And all I got to say is just win, baby. See you later.